Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publicists Association's Let It Be Known. This morning we talk with Senator Raphael Warnock out of Georgia about the annual legislative conference that's coming up next week in Washington, D.C. We'll hear what the senator has to say in preparation for the CBCF's annual legislative conference. But also this morning, Angola prison is in the news this morning. Um, 75 plus percent of the inmates there are Black. But then a big case happened on Friday regarding children at Angola prison. And we'll tell you about that. And how about this? A rapper was arrested after his song totally implicated him in a murder. I'm going to tell you how that happened. I mean, this one is like the world's dumbest criminals, part 100. And Vivek Ramaswamy says that as president, he would deport American born children of undocumented immigrants from an immigrant. Also, Kamala Harris is stepping up to the plate. She did, over the weekend gave an interview on CBS, and she swung back at her critics big time, and she put to rest any thoughts in her mind, at least, that President Biden is too old for a second term, and if anything were to happen to him, she's ready to step in. Which, of course, is some of the reasons that certain people won't vote for Biden. And of course, celebrating Coco Gauf's win at the US Open, 19 years old, and what a career she's already had, but what a career ahead of her, ahead of Coco Gauff. But first, we began in Louisiana. Chief Judge Shelley Dick has ordered Louisiana officials to cease housing children, predominantly Black boys, in the former death row section of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, commonly referred to as Angola. What were they doing in the death row area anyway, right? The order dictates the swift removal of the children from this facility by the end of this week. That will end nearly 10 months of what the judge deemed abusive conditions following a rigorous 7-day hearing in August. Judge Dick verbally delivered the decision, and during the proceedings, lawyers representing the children and their families presented compelling evidence that the minors were consistently subjected to solitary confinement and denied their fundamental right to education, proper treatment, and other vital services while enduring inhumane conditions in that prison. The situation, of course, mirrors that of Angola's long and racist history. State officials built that prison on land that was once an 8,000-acre farm in West Feliciana Parish, which is a remote part of the state. The farm was named Angola after the country where its former slaves came from. It was first used as a prison in 1880 when prisoners lived in the old slave quarters and worked on the farm. The state took over Angola in 1901 because of unhinged brutality against the inmates. Of course, all at that time was 100% Black. By 2008, Angola State Prison was the size of Manhattan with 18,000 acres. In the maximum security jail, almost all of the inmates, as we stated, are Black. And all the officers who watch over them, well, they're white. And get this, the officers are called, quote, freemen, not guards. Today, Angola houses about 6,300 prisoners. More than 75% of them are Black. And Judge Dick unequivocally determined that the conditions in Angola constitute cruel and unusual punishment. The judge further highlighted that the prevailing punitive environment, coupled with systemic failures in programming, clearly violates the 14th Amendment and federal laws safeguarding children with disabilities. Further, the judge's ruling underscored that the state had reneged on every assurance it made during a prior court hearing in September of the preceding year, where it pledged not to mete out punitive measures against children. And this is the problem, folks. And it's going to sound like a broken record. And again, wish totally Randy was here right now. This is the problem I have with what Jay-Z and Rock Nation did in Mississippi at that prison there. They obviously took their word that they were going to start treating people more humanely. And Jay-Z and Rock Nation removed a federal lawsuit to change conditions in the prison. In exchange, they got the right to do some sort of documentary there. But the moment you could imagine, just like here in Angola, the moment that they signed off on that and said, "Okay, we're we're good," it went right back to the same thing. And the judge in this case, in Angola's case, found the state guilty of the following: confining children to cells for extended periods as a punitive measure, resorting to handcuffs, the use of mace, and denying family visits as punishment. They also failed to ensure sufficient staffing, including the absence of licensed social workers or professional counselors. They neglected to provide adequate standard and special education services when required, and they failed to administer necessary and appropriate mental health treatment or social services. So and these kids, by the way, ages 10 to 16. And it's horrific, horrific. Don't now the reason the crimes for which they were in prison have not been was not spelled out during this case. But these again, children in on death row. Uh, and it wasn't the one thing we know is that they were not in for murder, but they were stashed in death row or on death row. Um, Power 96 says, blame that Dixiecrat Governor John Bell Edwards. Mm, yeah, it's a whole lot of blame to go around here. But this is the system, right? This criminal injustice system when it comes to certain individuals. And these are children. These are children. It's an all-out war now, folks. All-out war. How about this? It's just you have to really look at this guy's lyrics, his words, to really understand how he jammed himself up here, and now he's gonna go away for murder. A Nevada rapper was arrested on a murder charge after Las Vegas police said he quote confessed to the murder in his song lyrics. Kenwan McDaniel was arrested August 29th on a charge of open murder with a deadly weapon, according to a news release from the Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. His bail was set at $1 million with electronic monitoring. McDaniel had been considered a person of interest in the death of Randall Wallace on September 18th, 2021, in part due to his connection to a vehicle that matched the description of one used during the crime. However, no other supporting evidence came to light, so authorities and investigators were stuck. And then in July of this year, a detective noticed a music video posted by McDaniel on YouTube. And he reviewed the lyrics in the video and, quote unquote, detectives noted the music video bore a sufficient level of similarity to the details of the murder. This includes the fact that Kenwan confessed to the murder in his lyrics. Details provided by Kenwan in his music video. Also, this is the key: they were not released to the public and would not be common knowledge. One lyric included in the warrant is park the car, double back on feet, the smartest way to slide, drove in, double lock your man, make sure you get your bod, which the warrant states includes details of the killing that were not released to the public. In addition, it states that while McDaniel rapped in the video, he reenacted elements of the killing that were consistent with evidence at the scene that people did not know about. Facts gathered during the investigation were obtained separately from the music video. The music video further validated the results of the investigation, according to authorities. McDaniel has a preliminary hearing scheduled for this coming Thursday. And Austin is watching this morning. He says, I wonder if he now realizes that he's an idiot and has been one since birth. We talked about this before. I think Austin was a part of that conversation too. But we talked about this before because one of the things that Fonnie Willis in Georgia has been doing, the district attorney there, with the YSL crew, is she's used their lyrics. And there was this big thing, and there's certainly Jamal Bowman, the representative out of New York, and gosh, who's the other rep? But they have been fighting the use of lyrics in prosecutions. But this one, I wonder. I need to talk to Jamal Bowman because I wonder if this one, how would they think about this one? Because this guy was just insane enough to write a rap song and do a video and include all the things that happened that were not released publicly by police. So, I mean, it was, as they said, this is why they call it a confession. Uh, how how insane! It's good if he did it. It's good that he got caught. You don't want anybody getting away with murder. Only Viola Davis, right? How to get away with murder. But in this case, this guy just threw himself under the bus. Mike V says, if we are going to use music lyrics for incrimination, then why aren't we using white nationalist social media feeds as evidence for domestic terrorism? And you can go on and on with that one, Mike, because you're right. It should all be fair game then. Um, I got what Representative Jamal Bowman was saying when it comes to the YSL folks and others. But in this particular case, though, if you're going to just go openly and talk about something that, again, the police intentionally withheld and never released publicly, and then you're going to go and you're going to exploit that. I mean, it's like OJ went to prison for 10 years for stealing his own stuff. Well, he really went to prison for killing his ex-wife and her friend, right? I mean, because he kept throwing it in their faces. He was free and he was able to do this and do that or whatever. And they said, you know what? We're going to teach him a lesson. And so here in this case, this McDaniel guy, he just was throwing it in their face. He obviously felt like he got away with the crime. But I'm for the most part, Mike V, I'm on board with what Rep Jamal Bowman has been trying to do there, because I just think that if you're going to go down that road, then you got to go all the way down that road, like you said. The white nationalist Donald Trump, he should be in jail simply because of stuff he's posted, right? You got a lot of metal and rock stars who have wrote lyrics and stuff about criminal activity. So hey, I mean, you got crime, you got crime novel writers. Everybody be in trouble. So, but you can't just pick and choose, right? Right, Mike B. You gotta, if you're going through that door, you gotta go all the way through. And that's the situation, folks. But this guy was that show, The World's Dumbest Criminals. Well, certainly he's going to be added to that roster. How about Vivek Ramaswamy, the Republican candidate for president? Every time we talk about him, it's exasperating. It's almost like talking about a Clarence Thomas or talking about a Candace Owens. Um, Here's a guy who obviously doesn't wash his face or anything, doesn't brush his teeth or anything. Why do I say that? Because he doesn't look in the mirror. Obviously, he has no sense of where he has lost all sense of where he's come from. But this guy says he would deport the children of undocumented immigrants with their families, despite them already being U.S. citizens. He says, quote, there are legally contested questions under the 14th Amendment of whether the child of an illegal immigrant is indeed a child who enjoys a birthright citizenship or not. He's made these comments at a town hall in, of all places, Iowa. He is not the only, of course, GOP candidate to question U.S. citizenship rules. Of course, Trump announced in May that on his first day back in office, He would seek to end birthright citizenship by way of an executive order. Despite the Ramaswamy's plans, a majority of Americans said the U.S. should continue to provide birthright citizenship in a poll following Donald Trump's announcement and following Vivek's comments. Timothy Williams says Vivek is just ignorant, willfully ignorant, I think, willfully. I mean, it's this guy, it's, he's trying so hard to be the brown skinned Donald Trump. It's just ridiculous. Um, Power 96 says he's the new brown face for white supremacy. What does he think? And what does people like Candace Owens think and Steve Harvey and others like that of that ilk? What do they think? So there's this big expose. I think it was NBC News or it could be CNN on their website wrote about Trump and his plans um, should he be reelected. And they are really dictatorship plans. This hardcore, and he's not even hiding it, right? And if Trump were to have his way, what does Vivek think is going to happen to him? What does people like that can first of all, we also know that Trump has absolutely zero loyalty to anyone, but not just Trump, but any of these hardline far right wing racists have, right? Where do you think you're standing? Where's your stand? Where do you think you're standing, right? And the question with Vivek, okay, you were born here too. You under those same rules that you're spouting. Are you going to deport yourself? Are you going home? Because clearly home is not the United States. That's the question, to ask. It's just terrible. It's like Clarence Thomas when he was doing the Roe v. Wade, and if you read what he wrote, right? He talked about all these other rights, but you know where he stopped short, which came up. John Roberts and them brought this up. He stopped short at interracial marriage because his master, Jeannie, is white. So he stopped short there. So Vivek, he went the whole country mile, didn't he? He said they got to go, even they born here. So Vivek, whatever boat you sending them on, you should be driving it. You should be right there with them. Mike V says Bobby Jindal, Nikki Haley, Vivek, they are all Indian and all within the conservative movement. So much for black and brown folks coming together. Hey, again, can't disagree. Timothy says he falsely thinks because he is rich, he will be saved. But Mike V. Austin says he's asking in India, what do they call coons? Good Lord. Everybody's loaded for bear this morning. But Mike, right. I say it often. And I'm all for ebony, ivory, living in harmony and all that stuff. I'm 100% for it. However, we see it all the time. Any other cause, people are rallying to that cause. The world got together for a cup of coffee after George Floyd was murdered. But that was it. The coffee cooled off quick. I like my coffee hot. Once it starts to get warm and I'm done with the coffee. I need the hot coffee. Got to get Starbucks or McDonald's used to have really hot coffee until they started getting sued. And I wish people wouldn't have sued them because I love hot coffee. And so anyway, how did we get to that? But the thing is, every time, Mike V, there's a cause. Black folks, oh yeah. But when it's a black cause, there's a limit. Okay, y'all, we'll do this. But anybody else, we talked about the Stop Asian Hate. They signed that bill immediately, right? Here we talk. John Lewis dead few years now. What happened to the John Lewis bill, right? They don't even talk about it anymore. George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Do you hear that anymore? No. We're gonna go to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference next week. Week long, big soiree affair, however you say it, in Washington. All these lawmakers, all these big people you'll hear later in our interview with Senator Warnock. Quavo will be there. Among others, it brings out a lot of celebrities too. And they sit on these panels and they talk politics and things. Um, we won't hear George Floyd Justice and Police Act. We won't hear the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We're not going to hear that. They're dead in the water. George Floyd happened in 2020. Okay, you black folks, you had your moment. That's just the way it is. That is just the way it is. They say something remotely where somebody can say it's anti-Semitic. Anti-Defamation League jumps up, says, "Hey, we're not standing for that," and they shut it down. Somebody does something, Irish, the Irish American folks will jump up, shut it down. Black folks, we tend to join the parade. That's why we got the Kanye Wests and the Steve Harveys, and Steve Harvey telling you, it's not about, it's not about dignity. It's all about the money. Clarence Thomas's of the world. That's why we don't really see that with others. I mean, am I missing something? Somebody tell me if we see, Italian folks doing that, or Irish folks doing that, or Jewish folks we don't see that. It's we see it here. We see it with people who look like us. Get it together, folks. Get it together. Vivek is just, he is really trying to see just how much of a shock value he can get out of everything, and try and turn those into votes. Um, you know, who, or maybe he's just trying to position himself to be Trump's running mate. Maybe that's what it's all about. The only one I can't see being Trump's running mate is DeSantis, because I don't think Trump has any intentions on running with DeSantis. He's crushing DeSantis as it is. Another hateful individual. But Nikki Haley actually, she actually has a shot at actually winning the Republican nomination. I think Tim Scott is somebody who's running to be the hope, with the hopes of being Trump's vice president. But out of all of those idiots, Chris Christie is using this as a tour, and this candidacy as a tour in which he is just going off on Trump. He's the only one. He wants to show, look, I'm big enough and brave enough to take him to task, and that's all he's been doing. He hasn't talked policy. He hasn't talked about what he could do, what he would do if he's elected, because he knows he's not getting elected. It's just about I'm going after Donald Trump. It's like the lawyer Cohen. Everything Cohen does, it's about bringing Trump down. And if you're running on those premises, if you're involved, trying to take somebody down on those premises, it just doesn't work. It's the state of politics. Again, I say 1,000 times. This is why I just don't get involved with politics. It's just so ridiculous. Timothy Williams says we need the young progressives in office. We need more of the Justins of Tennessee in office. Yeah, they're trying to get rid of the Justins. Austin says Trump will pick Vivek as his weekend valet before his running mate. Unpaid too, indentured servant. Michelle Madison says, I know this is off topic, but do you think if the recent Pennsylvania prison escapee had been black, would he have been caught by now? It's been 14 days. Oh, they want to catch him. Believe me, they want to catch him. He was spotted was it last night? He was spotted. He stole a truck and he altered his image and he tried to contact family members. They're closing in on him. Um, Michelle, I wonder if I mean you don't have to say where you live, but if you live anywhere near the area, which is might be why you're asking, but they are closing in on him. It appears. But anybody see the video of how he got out? This guy was like Spider-Man. I mean, he did this little they call it a crab walk up the brick wall and stuff. It was I mean, it's not a good thing, but it was quite amazing. It was absolutely amazing how he got out of that jail, that prison. This guy is serving he just was convicted last month of murdering his girlfriend, and, Michelle says her sister lives in Pennsylvania, and he's wanted for murder in Brazil. And it's interesting too because back in May, another at the same prison there in Pennsylvania, Chester, Pennsylvania, um, another inmate got out of the jail, the prison, the same way. Crab walked up the wall, but they caught him within 5 minutes. It was the why bother? If you can't escape, to at least have like a couple hours to have lunch or dinner or something, real food. Then what was the point? 5 minutes. They caught him 5 minutes. This guy, this guy's been gone. You said 14 days? Yeah, 14 days. He's been gone. And part of what was hampering the search is the fact that the weather had been so hot. He was out in the swamps, and she said, "Not lunch, yeah, lunch." He was out in the swamps, and even the dogs were like exhausted from the heat that they sent out. So this guy, he was in somebody's backyard. He was spotted in somebody's on their camera. How scary is that to wake up and then you review your video camera at your home and see a murderer in your backyard behind the bushes? Goodness grief! They got to get this guy. Law enforcement, if you're riding up along 495 or 95, you could see law enforcement, more law enforcement uh, vehicles from all over Maryland, New York, um, Delaware, Virginia. They all have come in to help with this search, and you see all these different vehicles constantly. So they're going to get him. It's a question of, well, will they take him alive? That's really what it all comes down to. Because look, this guy is they say he's armed and dangerous, or he should be considered armed and dangerous. Power 96 asks, Greer, do you see what Power 96 is asking? Why isn't Tim Scott a member of the CBC? Again, Tim Scott is like Vivek. Has he looked in the mirror at all? No. He gets somebody dressing him and bathing him and stuff. He doesn't he avoids the mirror at all costs. He doesn't realize something about him that is pretty obvious to anybody else. Tim, the secret's out. You're black. So yeah, interesting enough, Mike V says you have black men serving 40 plus years for crimes they have never committed, while this guy is running around and entitled to be free. And as we talked about the Angola prison, you got 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds being housed on death row because they don't have anywhere else to put them in inhumane conditions, and they all are black, Mike. So this is this is the thing. Black people have so much to come together on, and don't, right? Only thing we come together on, somebody black is a billionaire, and they make, oh yes, so we love them. Somebody black is a NBA star, we love them. Somebody black is a NFL star, we love them. That's it. We need to come together right now, as the song says. So, Vice President Kamala Harris pushed back against GOP attacks on both her ability to serve as commander in chief if needed and President Joe Biden's age in the early race for the White House. Republican presidential candidates, including Ron DeSantis, of course, and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie, have honed in on the possibility of Harris serving as president while raising concerns about President Biden's age. If he wins the second term, Biden would be 86 years old at the end of it. In an interview on CBS's Face the Nation, host Margaret Brennan asked Kamala Harris to respond to Republican attacks against her ability to serve as president. First and foremost, first and foremost, um, her ability to serve. This is a woman who was district attorney in San Francisco, attorney general in California, served as a senator, and now has vast experience. And I say vast, even though it's been 3 years as vice president, right? But it's vast because of the turmoil that they took over, her and Joe Biden, the turmoil. This country was probably in its worst state than it had seen in decades. The turmoil, the overt racism, the sexism. So she's dealt with that, and she's done it in a way, and this is probably, I'm gonna underscore why they are mad. The same thing with, we talked about the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, why they are mad, because they don't go off on them. Kamala Harris, the vice president, doesn't start cursing and cussing at them. Uh, the press secretary, that they cool, calm, and educated in their responses, and they hate that. And that is the bottom line. Oh, we can rattle this black woman. We can do whatever. And it's so interesting. As sick and silly and uneducated and unprepared as a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Lauren Boebert is, they don't get these attacks. So what does it tell you? So Kamala Harris says they're talking about what you would do as president as being a risk. They're honing in on you. Why do you think that is? This is what she was asked. How do you respond to those attacks? That's not about policy. That's about you, right? It's a personal thing. And she says this is not new. And again, she noted she was the first woman elected district attorney of San Francisco, the first woman to serve as attorney general of California, as well as having, in her words, represented 1 in 8 Americans as a senator and being the first female vice president. They feel the need to attack because they are scared that we will win based on the merit of the work that Joe and I and our administration has done. It's quite obvious. I mean, gotta be. You can't. You have to be either ignorant or living under a rock not to see the obvious here. And she says, without hesitation, when asked again whether she was prepared to be commander in chief, the vice president said, "Yes, I am." And you gotta, if you haven't seen it, and look at, she looked that directly at that interviewer, didn't blink. Yes, I am, if necessary. And so it's just, nobody did that to Dan Quayle, who's probably probably the most ignorant, least intelligent vice president in the history of this country. Too much. All right. So Coco Gauf, on the good news side, she etched her name in tennis history as she clinched the U.S. Open singles title, becoming the youngest player since Serena Williams' historic victory in 1999 when Serena was just 17 years old. Coco's remarkable triumph came after an intense three-set battle against Ariana Sabalenka with a final score of 2-6, 6-3, 6-2. In amid the crowd's roar and the flashbulbs of countless cameras, Coco Gauf stood on the iconic Arthur Ashe Stadium, her trophy shining brightly and her victory speech filled with a sense of readiness for the fame that is undoubtedly coming her way. She says, "I'm ready." She says, "I will embrace it. I know how to keep my peace, but also embrace all this around me." As she accepted her winner's check of $3 million, she took a moment to graciously thank tennis legend Billie Jean King, who stood alongside her on the stage. That gesture highlighted how Coco Gauff's been uh, absolutely lauded, and rightfully so, for her perspective, her humor, and her charm that has set the stage for American sports' next global icon. She got congratulations from President Joe Biden, President Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Michelle Obama, and so many others. In fact, Barack and Michelle Obama attended an earlier match with Coco, obviously cheering her on from the stands. The former First Lady paid tribute to her, saying that it was all about hard work and grit, and rightfully so. She really worked it out. And Serena Williams saluted her as well with a post on Instagram, writing that it was simply amazing. And certainly that defines Coco Gauff, 19 years old. So for years to come, we should be watching some serious greatness from this young lady, and it's going to be a great ride. So we had a chance to speak to Senator Raphael Warnock, the senator out of Georgia. Coming up is the annual legislative conference. And actually, folks, that week caps off that Friday night with the NMPA's Leadership Awards. That Friday night at the Marriott Marquis in Washington, D.C. Y'all come along. I mean, go to NMPA-events.com, grab some tickets. This should be rough ends. Y'all remember Rough Ends? I know Power 96 remembers Rough Ends. They are going to actually perform for us. And it should be a great performance, as the band One Vision, who always does an amazing job, will be there. But Ben Crump will be honored, as well as the Honorable Stephen Horsford will be honored as well, among others. But we talked to Austin, and I sat down with the senator from Georgia, and let's take a look at what the senator had to say. National Black Caucus Foundation has opened registration for the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, which will be held from September 20th to the 24th at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in D.C., with Delegate Stacey Plaskett and Senator Raphael Warnock serving as honorary co-chairs. The conference's theme: securing our democracy, protecting our freedoms, uplifting our cultures. Joining Austin Cooper and myself this morning, special guest, the senator himself, Reverend Raphael Warnock. How you doing, sir?
It's great to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Senator, we'll jump right into it. Given the theme of this year's conference, securing our democracy, protecting our freedoms, uplifting our culture, what specific initiatives or policies do you believe are crucial in achieving these goals, particularly in the context of current challenges facing our democracy?
Again, great to be here with you. We are very proud to present this year's 52nd annual conference. The Congressional Black Caucus, I believe, when the history of our country is written, will be recognized for the central role it has played in securing our freedoms, in protecting our democracy, in uplifting the ways in which a culture defined by the struggle against oppression has been so important for liberating the whole country. And there's certainly no more important moment than this. This is a moral moment in our country. We are literally witnessing an assault on the democratic principles that make us a free country. And the fact that someone like me got elected from the state of Georgia, a state in the heart of the old Confederacy, is good news, but it should not lull us into sleep, into thinking that we have arrived. We have a great struggle in front of us with protecting voting rights. I was in a fierce struggle to secure the voices of the very people who sent me back to the Senate for a full 6-year term. So we'll be focused on voting rights. we'll be focused on protecting our various other rights, civil rights, human rights. And we will be bringing together a wonderful constellation of policymakers and critical thinkers, elected officials, and ordinary citizens to make our country as great as its ideals.
Yeah, and Senator, before I throw it over to Austin, I know Austin's chomping at the bit. It's always a privilege to talk to you. Can you share some highlights or key sessions that are planned for the conference that you believe might have a more significant impact, particularly on the African-American community at large?
Well, there are a whole range of sessions reflective of the work that we're doing right here in Congress. Everything, again, from protecting our democracy and protecting voting rights to dealing with the need to cap the cost of prescription drugs to make sure that people have access to affordable health care, which I believe is a human right, to dealing with the issue of gun violence. I will do a conference on Wednesday afternoon focused on the issue of gun violence and gun safety. We have seen in our country this year a mass shooting every day. In fact, there have been more mass shootings this year than there have been days in this year. And that's not counting the ongoing crisis of violence that takes the lives of way too many people in Black and brown communities every single year. And so I'm proud to welcome hip hop artists from Atlanta, Quavo, along with one of our grassroots organizations focused on this work, and my colleague in the House, Representative Lucy McBath, who tragically lost her son to racialized gun violence many years ago, which spurred her entrance really into public life. It's important for us to have a family conversation in America about gun violence, and I'm looking forward to my own workshop on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, and we know Austin, he mentioned Quavo. He lost a very significant loved one to senseless gunplay, if you will, gun violence, if you will. I'll throw it to you, Austin.
Senator, good to see you, sir. Senator, how has the ALC evolved since its inception, and the legislative conference since its inception, and how has it evolved since you have been in the Senate, sir?
Well, you know, I'm one of the newcomers, but I stand with a deep sense of pride. I'm deeply honored to stand on the shoulders of the folks who were here in the early days, who paved the way, including my own parishioner, John Lewis, as well as others who were here before him. But that work continues. As I think about John Lewis, I think about the fact that we, in those early days of the conference, the Congressional Black Caucus was key to making sure that we reauthorized time and time again the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Those struggles continue, as I have been very focused on making sure that we pass, and we intend to introduce again the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act. And so this is a relay race, and it's our turn to stand up for the values that make our country great.
Yeah, well, and Senator, it's certainly, again, we just want to say it's a privilege to have you with the Black Press and the Washington Informer. Healthcare, education, and economic empowerment are vital components of the conference's agenda. Can you discuss some of the innovative approaches or policy recommendations that will be explored? Any surprises during the week? We always get some surprises.
Well, if I tell you that it's not a surprise, I want to encourage everybody to come to the conference. I mean, you know, this is a conference that never disappoints. We bring together the best and the brightest, not just elected officials, but people who are activists at the grassroots level, who help us to understand the work that we must do on everything from voting rights to healthcare to gun violence to creating jobs and opportunity in communities all across our country. The message is this: look, federal policy makes a difference. Elections matter. Here I stand as a United States Senator, but before I was a senator, I was a Head Start kid. Head Start, for example, a program that gives young preschool age kids access to the kind of learning that they need, that both instructs and inspires. I'm a product of Upward Bound, of Pell Grants and low interest student loans, which is why I've been so focused on addressing the issue of student debt. Too many of our kids have a mortgage before they have a mortgage. And we know that Black people and people of color are disproportionately impacted by this. The data is very, very clear. If we can relieve some of the student debt, which the administration has made quite a bit of progress on, particularly when you think about the ways in which that fight has been enjoined by those who apparently don't want equity in our country. If we can get more of that done, it would begin to close the racial wealth gap. And all of this at a time when we're seeing an assault on affirmative action in the higher ed space. The question is, will we be two different Americas? Or will we push the country towards its ideals, e pluribus unum, out of many? One, a nation where a kid's outcome is not based on their parents' income. And the Congressional Black Caucus has always been central to that fight. I'm proud to be a part of that caucus, proud to do that work. And we look forward to the conversation each year, because we understand that change doesn't happen from the top down, it happens from the bottom up. And so faith leaders, activists, grassroots folks, parents, ordinary people, folks who are interested in securing our democracy, in protecting our freedoms, including reproductive rights, and interested in uplifting the culture that inspires all of us to keep fighting the fight. Let's come together and have one more great conversation, one more great family reunion.
That sounds great, Austin.
Senator, just two quick questions, sir. How will you evaluate the success of the ALC?
Well, I don't know that it's my job to evaluate it. I mean, I think it's important for all of us who have the incredible honor of representing our neighbors and our friends in the Congress to make sure that we stay connected to them. One of the things that I said to the people of Georgia on my most recent election night is that even as I wrestle with you through difficult problems, some problems that sometimes seem intractable, and if we're honest, change is slow, it's hard, it comes in starts and fits. Here's my promise: I'll always walk with you, even as I work for you. And so the significance of the ALC is that it brings all of us together, so that we're held accountable in a network of accountability, and we're informed by best insights, which often come from those who are right there on the front line doing the work every single day. When you talk about the African American community, you're talking about people in every walk of life. You're talking about school teachers. You're talking about first responders, people in our healthcare fields who've seen what a lack of access to healthcare actually looks like on the line. We're talking about police officers. We're talking about people in the civil rights community, faith leaders, and as well as those who, again, inspire us and challenge us with their words and with their poetry on this year in which we celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop. I think the story of our legislative fights can't be told without reference to Grandmaster Flash and Public Enemy and a whole range of others who through their words have challenged us and provoked us.
Yeah, Run DMC.
Run DMC.
Senator, I have one final question, if I may.
Don't leave out the women, Moni.
There you go.
Senator,
I'm showing my age now.
Senator, do you have any plans to introduce legislation to establish an Alpha Phi Alpha chapter in the Congress? You know, I'm representing today, brother.
Listen, Don't encourage me. You know I will if I can.
That, you know what, you guys have that conversation in Georgia, okay? Well, Senator, key takeaways for participants. I mean, it's going to be lawmakers, activists, scholars, thought leaders at the conference, as always. But what do you hope will be the key takeaway for participants after engaging in these critical discussions and forums?
Listen, you're talking to a preacher, and when folks gather on Sunday morning, it's always my goal that they won't think that worship is the end of it, that alone is the point. We enter the worship, we depart to serve. So I hope that after we've had these discussions and these conversations, we will walk out inspired, with renewed passion, zeal, commitment, but also insight, as we think about our strategy moving forward to indeed secure our democracy, protect our freedoms, uplift the culture. We're in a fight. And while Black folk and Black communities might, if you will, be the canary in the mine, we might be the first indications when there's trouble, because our communities are marginalized in so many ways. This really is a fight for the whole country. Yeah. And I think there's just so much at stake. And so I take that fight very seriously. But I'm glad we added culture to the theme this year, because I think you need to keep the joy. You need to have a song in your heart. You need to have some poetry, some imagination, some artistic vision, even as you fight for the best.
You know, a couple of years ago, I know that's the last question, but a couple of years ago,
you like a Baptist preacher. That's in closing. You've had 3 closings now.
Let me tell you something. It's my encore. But a couple of years ago, someone by the name of Cory Booker and someone by the name of Kamala Harris were the co-chairs, and that Mrs. Harris became, of course, Senator Harris became Vice President Harris. So I'm just throwing that out there, Senator. Just throwing that out there.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We've got to do everything we can to reelect President Biden and Vice President Harris.
Absolutely. Well, the 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, September 20th, it kicks off. It's always perhaps the biggest event of the year in Washington, D.C. at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center. And we just enjoyed some time with the co-chair, Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock,
Thanks,
who's
everybody.
As the co-chair. Thanks so much.
We'll
see you there.
All right.
Thanks again to the Senator for taking out the time with Austin and myself. That was we should mention that was a co-interview event, the Washington Informer and the Black Press of America. The Washington Informer has a special arrangement with the CBCF this year, and that was a part of the arrangement of the CBCF. And you can see a big supplement that the Informer is doing that should be released this coming either tomorrow or Wednesday. But either way, look for it this week. And just wanted to mention just a couple of quick things. William Schlosser is writing in some things. Apparently, it's a MAGA person. You're welcome, MAGA. You can come watch us. You're welcome. Right wingers, you're just as welcome as the liberals. All y'all welcome. Maybe we'll all learn something. Maybe you'll learn something. Michelle Madison says she admires and respects the senator. I like his platform and strategies. Also, it's been 10, not 14 days since they've been looking for the Pennsylvania. She's really into this Pennsylvania prison. I don't blame you. She says he probably found a woman that is keeping him, and that's her opinion. But Bobby Henry, the esteemed chair of the NNPA and publisher of the West Side Gazette in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, says that Senator Warnock, the publishers of the NNPA, will continue to support him and his efforts of leadership, and want to remind him and others that we are here to amplify your voices. And that's what the Black Press does, amplifies the voices that need amplification. We appreciate you all for joining us this morning, and stay tuned for more as we bring you the Legislative Conference. And again, remember, the National Newspaper Publicists Association's big event is that Friday at the Marriott Marquis to end that Legislative Conference week. Come join us, nmpa-events.com. Check it out. Ben Crump will be honored. Stephen Horsford, the chair of the CBC. Pfizer will have a representative there as an honoree as well, and others. Rough Ends is going to perform, and we'll have a nice red carpet out there for you guys to come on in and join the festivities. So we'll see you then. But more importantly, and more immediately, not more importantly, but more immediately, we'll see you tomorrow.